Monday Morning Matters. Perspectives from Southeast Asia. Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Hi, this is Grace.
And of course, you are back with us with our Monday Morning Matters. See, I don't
is
sound
right.
Punjabi.
So this is, of course, it was our ABC focus, which has been extended for also for a more extensive coverage on Southeast Asian issues. Because before this, we only allocated like 25 minutes, and we felt that that wasn't enough to cover things about Southeast Asia.
That's true. And I think the main important point of this revamping of name is to make it more sexier, you know?
What do you
catchier, catchier in that sense. And
I mean, ABC Focus, that name is so boring.
I know.
We need something that matters to us.
Yeah, definitely. We focus on ASEAN matters, so
So
we're
what-
focusing more on ASEAN matters.
So we start off the year 2015
Mhm.
in trying to predict or somehow giving a preview on what's the main trend that we will be seeing in the whole year of 2015. Of course, overall, the ASEAN Economic Community will be formalized or is already formalizing itself this year, 2015. And Malaysian will be the chairman or is already a chairman of the ASEAN Summit in 2015. But there are also other trends that we want to highlight to you guys. So we can start off with what, Gowri?
Yes.
Your prediction. So
Well,
what is your crystal ball tell you?
my crystal ball has a lot of screens on it, a lot of touching with fingers.
Okay, that sounds wrong, Gowri.
Oh,
Well,
Monday morning
I
matters really.
am looking at the technology trends for 2015
Mhm.
and focused on Southeast Asia, but I think it's pretty much relatable even on a global scale because everyone can relate to technology, and we're definitely becoming more technologized, if there's such a word.
But I thought you are the
Just
books
create-
and paper person.
Yes, but that can be a little inconvenient sometimes because I carry like a ton of books in my bag, and that's heavy. So if I just carry a Kindle, I can have like 300 books in there, and it's the same weight.
Well, we all know the most technologically connected society is actually South Koreans. So are you saying that
hello.
ASEANs are going to be like South Koreans, aka
And
Grace?
Japan.
Well,
Yeah.
technologically, yes. Technologically, okay.
Yeah.
I'm all over the place today.
If I'm not mistaken, in South Korea, you can get Wi-Fi in almost
Everywhere.
everywhere in South
Almost
Korea.
everywhere, yeah. And you can access to the internet, and the speed is like you can be content with the speed there.
Just clearly not contented with the speed here. Putting it very
so how
subtly.
can 2015 change or make Southeast Asian more connected technologically? You know, it's interesting that you mentioned that because if you look at a bigger picture, one of the key highlight of the ASEAN community is ASEAN connectivity, although it's not being mentioned that much lately. I don't know why, but I still remember a few years back they have an ASEAN connectivity blueprint. One of the focus is to improve the technological advance of this region.
And of course, when we talk about connectivity, we go back to talking about Wi-Fi and smartphones and tablets, which is like a compulsory thing these days. You know, back when it came out, of course, you could have a tablet, you could not have a tablet or a smartphone. But these days, when someone doesn't have a smartphone, you're just like, wait, what? Why don't you have a smartphone? And it's become such a necessity for us.
And you can get it quite cheaply. And then nowadays you have Xiaomi and all these Chinese-made brands.
And it's becoming easier and more affordable also to actually get this stuff. And also in terms of businesses, a lot of them are going online because it's easier to reach out to the global market if you actually put your business online, and that was another thing that was highlighted during the ASEAN Bag meeting that we attended, where they want more people to actually make use of the internet. And we also had a representative from TM who was there, who said, yes, we will actually work
TM,
on that.
by the way?
Sorry. Telecom Malaysia.
Telecom
that's
Malaysia.
TM. Yeah. So he actually said that we will do something about the speed of the internet to make it make it easier for people to be connected, and also easier for them to conduct whatever businesses that they need to do online.
Yeah, but this is only Malaysia. When it comes to Southeast Asia, we are still very much backward. Hopefully,
Well, but it's really interesting to know when it comes to usage of social media, Southeast Asia, the percentage is higher than the United
oh my
countries.
God, thank
Because-
goodness you mentioned that.
Welcome, Arlene.
I mean, it just came to my mind on Facebook. Indonesia is one of the highest
Highest.
percentage in terms of social media user for Facebook.
Yeah, so because of that, all companies will focus more on developing technology, like all those devices, mobile phones, and all those iPad gadgets. Yeah, so because it's the rate that has been selling throughout the Southeast East Asia is quite high compared to other countries.
And we tend to attract a lot of these investors to come in because they all look at Southeast Asia as this huge untapped market with a lot of potential that we don't know how to make use ourselves.
And because of technology, you can actually do business. I mean, I like
for
to
sure,
give
yes.
the example of makcik selling nasi lemak. I don't know why. My obsession with
I
nasi
think that's
lemak.
your favorite example.
A makcik of selling nasi lemak can actually do a global business by having probably just Facebook.
That's true.
Yeah.
And then Myanmar is opening up for a lot of platforms, and then they can't ignore the technology side as well. And all those people is still moving very slowly when it comes to technology, but then people have started
And the price,
using it.
because technology companies are emerging, a lot of them, the price are becoming more competitive, and because of that, the prices of being connected is actually getting much more cheaper. I still remember back in the days where the Myanmar was still being ruled by the military. It's so expensive to buy even a SIM card. To call someone is like spending a bomb. But nowadays, it's as cheaply as buying a SIM card from Maxis.
Yeah, and then if you travel to Vietnam, it's also a lot of especially younger generations. They prefer to use more devices nowadays, and then they can access to the internet and then to social media easier, and then it's more accessible than
And
before.
because there are more middle class people in Southeast Asia, people tend to get excited and they want to travel outside of their own home country, and because of that, there's a new trend also coming in.
New trend? Oh, from me.
From all
yes,
my
Grace, that was your cue in case you missed it.
Yeah, so talking about the middle income, the market here in Southeast Asia, travel is also one of the facts that we can't ignore. And of course, we have a recent event of all those negative news that has come out from all those Air Asia and other airplanes. But definitely Southeast Asia is they have a lot of places throughout Southeast Asia, and it's a hot spot for foreigners to come for tourism and also to experience the different cultures throughout the Southeast Asia.
So what is your hotspot?
My hotspot, I would love
In
to
Southeast
go to
Asia?
in Southeast Asia, especially I want to go to Myanmar. Yeah, that could be my hotspot, Arlene.
Okay, I don't know where you guys going with this.
Because I just found out it's very interesting because this month and the February are the best season to visit Myanmar, and after that the temperature will go really really high. It's going to be super duper hot, and after that it comes with the monsoon. So this coming 2 months is the best season to go.
Actually, you are right about people, the hot spots in Southeast Asia, because more and more people are choosing not to travel outside of this region. They choose to travel within this region. A lot of friends of mine prefer to travel around Thailand, Singapore, Indonesia, and especially in Indochina area where you mentioned about Myanmar. People seem to be so excited about the culture and the rich diversity of this region.
Because it's not being highlighted as much. Whenever we think of travel, we think of Bali or the Boracay Islands or the Universal Studios and this Indochina countries. They don't get as much attention, but they do have very beautiful places to visit there, especially if you look at Myanmar or Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. We were talking about Laos earlier as well. Even Cambodia, a lot of people have been there and they just love the rich history that Cambodia has to offer as well. So it's definitely something that is to look out for in 2015 because more people will tend to.
So your hotspot
sure.
is Cambodia, Gowri.
My hotspot is all four of the CLMV countries.
Well, but
Four
then in
hotspots.
addition to that, right?
Yeah.
What was I going to say? It's up. There was one news that it was released that about the ASEAN Pass, and I'm really looking forward to actually seeing that.
Oh, that one by
implemented.
Asia, right?
Yes. But with the recent event, I'm not so sure how they are going to execute the plan. But definitely
They might
something that
delay
we can look forward.
They might
Yeah.
delay entirely, but it's really sad what Tony Fernandez have to face right now. A lot of tragedies happening in this country, starting from the MH370. So I mean, in terms of aviation, definitely not the best year, 2015. But when it comes to traveling, I think a lot of people are getting more and more excited about this region, and yeah.
Not only for tourists, but also for business investors, foreign business investors. They, like we mentioned before, Southeast Asia, we have so many potential that they're looking forward to come and invest more business in certain countries. So definitely it will broaden the travel potential and the possibilities.
So anyway, we will take a short break, and when we return, I will share my trend
All right, that sounds very special.
on what is great about Southeast Asia in 2015.
Monday Morning Matters. Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Hey, Monday Morning Matters. This is Arlene.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Hi, hello, this is Grace.
Why are you laughing, Grace?
I don't need to talk about that.
So we're back on Durian ASEAN with our Monday Morning Matters, as you mentioned earlier, where we will be highlighting whatever it is about Southeast Asia every week, a different issue or a different matter.
And for this time, of course, we already highlighted two trends that we predicted will become bigger in 2015. But just to catch up from your the one that you predicted about your trend about traveling.
Yeah.
Of course, traveling is a big thing in Southeast Asia.
Of course.
But the government also do something about it, right?
Yes, Malaysia will set up a immigration lane, special immigration lane in KLIA soon. Hopefully it's from this month. That's what it was said before, and then it's gonna be called ASEAN Immigration Lane.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is
So
cool.
that will apply to everyone in all the 10 countries.
Yes.
So
that-
they get the priority.
Yes, and it'll also to improve and facilitate the tourism, and also for official matters, so it's easier for them to travel.
But wouldn't people feel discriminated? People who are not from ASEAN.
I would
and-
just say screw you.
Well, it is said that immigration lane will be open for other airports and also for other entry points. So it's not only for ASEAN people, but also it will be open for other reasons and purposes. But then to serve this lane, I think it's actually a good idea because Malaysia already become a chairman of ASEAN. We are doing something about it to open more platforms.
So besides, providing special passes, special entry point at the immigration, what about, promoting things that are truly Southeast Asian, like durians?
Oh, so do you want to plant durian in every 10 countries?
What is your trend, Arlene? Let's talk about that.
That's where I'm coming in.
We are going there now, Gowri.
The durian has an important link to the trend that I hope to. I think it would happen in Southeast Asia, which is to address the environmental issue in this country. See, a lot of the unique.
I thought it was like the plantation issue or something.
Well, that's part of it. So a lot of the environmental issues in this country, and also in this region, are not really being thoroughly addressed. But what's unique about Southeast Asia, if you compared to going to other regions, is Southeast Asia has a rich biodiversity, and because it has a rich biodiversity, it has a lot of wildlife, a lot of like really interesting fruits like durians, where we all love, but people hate it, like Grace.
I love it, by the way.
Just not the fake ones.
Yeah, just not the fake ones.
So anyway, but we all also, lately, especially in the last 10 to 20 years, with major development happenings, people tend to forget that what makes Southeast Asia is because of its, the rich kind of environmental, climate or environment in this region. And by just 2014, we have reported major haze happening, floods, bad weathers, climate change, and these are very key important issues that a lot of governments are neglecting. This is the reason why I think. But if we are really serious about ASEAN economic communities, to really focus on addressing a regional environment policy.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not so sure about Malaysia, but Singapore and all those developed ASEAN nations here, they have their own website to report and to warn the people in the nation to evacuate or be prepared for certain, weather issues, so they can get prepared. But in Malaysia, definitely when the flood hit certain areas in Malaysia, definitely it was unexpected for people, and that's when a lot of damages are done to people, and then people just become homeless after that.
Yeah.
And when it comes to all these climate changes, it's not something that we can handle by ourselves, because first of all, climate is not something that is in our control, and we really cannot decide what happens when, and the best that we can do is to rely on our meteorological department for
Which
them
is
to
a bit unreliable, isn't it? From the news reporting that I've been reading, it seems not to be functioning as effectively as what people want it to be, because when you want to know a certain key event, like when the flood will come in, you rely on these really important departments, but they seem to not be able to really disseminate this information as quick as they should be. In fact, when it comes to the flood issue, just one example I give, even after 3 days, the flood hit, the most remote areas in Kelantan and all that, they didn't get any help from any authorities, not even the local government or the federal government. That's how bad it was. Only after a few days.
Yeah.
That's very, very sad, actually.
But wouldn't that be the authorities' fault and not really on the meteorological department? Because they did actually come up with the warning to say that there will be floods, but the authorities didn't actually react to the floods that was coming, and even after it hit the east coast of the country.
I guess the communication between different government agencies are not really effective enough when it comes to not just this creating awareness, as well as forming good policies. This is also something that we need to be more concerned, especially in this region. You mentioned about how Singapore has taken responsibility to address the issue through its law, but the real culprit of the haze issue is not just in Singapore, but is in the Southeast Asian region.
That's true.
Indonesia is a major culprit, Malaysia as well. So to some extent, you cannot work alone in this region. You have to form a transnational sort of understanding what kind of environmental boundaries that you want to have.
And I believe, I don't know whether it's related to this issue or not, but I think it's really important to bring up this fact, which is, I think the media plays very important role in these matters to be able to bring up the awareness from the public, because what happens in Korea is when all this natural disaster hits the country, it's the media who plays the very vital role to be able to announce to the public and to be prepared and then to be cautious about it. So, for example, if haze hits our nation, then they will definitely report, and then to bring the awareness by asking them to wear masks, and these are the health issues that you will encounter. So they will keep like reporting almost every day to make sure that people know what's going on.
That's very good. I mean, you don't want to be in a situation where the government is tight-lipped until, you know, it reaches to a very critical stage where people are not happy what the government is not doing about it. I remember a few years back, I was in Beijing. It was really cold, and probably the government overused their coal, or there's just too much cars on the road, but it was really hazy, a lot of haze on the streets of Beijing, but there were very little warning about, you know, if the people should wear masks, or the people should remain in the house, or they should drink more water. And I think it's only later on when, you know, it became like such an international issue that the government actually would
take action to
take action and was able to talk openly about it. But we don't want to end up like that. I think Southeast Asia should change its method of trying to address issue, try to be more proactive about this.
And also improve the communication between the different departments, like you mentioned earlier, because at the end of the day, people do turn to the media for this kind of information, for you know, what to do about the haze, how to overcome this, what are the effects on my health, and all these different channels will be responsible for disseminating the information to the public.
And the most important thing, never blame God.
Oh, okay. Well, that's very
any-
sensitive issue here.
For any
anyways.
environmental problem that we have in Malaysia, in Southeast Asia, just blame ourselves for it. It's human error. Human error. It's nothing to do with God or God punishment to human beings.
But to move forward regarding this matter, right? Where do we start? As in, like, you know, does media need to start doing something about it, or is it the government has to look into, you know, consideration and then really, you know, take an action towards it?
I think it should start with the people themselves, because speaking in Malaysian context, like we mentioned earlier, Malaysians tend to be a bit passive, even with the haze issue. I remember talking to, of course, Yasmin from Econites, and she was saying that we've become so used to the haze that we don't even do anything about it anymore. The haze is out there. It's really bad. It's at a very critical condition, and people are not even wearing masks. But by right, at this point of the haze, people should not even be leaving their homes. But people don't know that, and even if they know, they're like, this happens every year. Like, that's fine. I can handle the haze.
And that's very dangerous.
That's dangerous, and that is the mindset that we need to change first. If it's dangerous, it's dangerous. There's no saying, oh, it's fine, I'll get used to it, because at the end of the day, it will catch up with you, because you are inhaling all that. So it definitely should start with the people. For us, we should not be complacent, not be passive about these important issues that could have a long-term and a very detrimental effect on our health.
That's Auntie Gowri giving you advice.
Okay.
You must listen. Just kidding. But we will take a short break. When we return, we will reveal to you other trends and updates about Southeast Asia in 2015 coming from a website called thediplomat.com.
Monday Morning Matters. Perspectives from Southeast Asia.
Hey, Arlene's here.
Hi, this is Gowri.
Hello, this is Grace.
We are again back with our Monday Morning Matters, talking about trends in Southeast Asia for 2015. So, Gowri,
Yes.
a lot of political issues political development that are happening in 2015.
That's right, and it's something that I have been observing as well, something that I'm looking forward to see some changes to be made in a few countries that we will get to in a short bit. So that is, I think, another important trend. I would call it the elections or the return to democracy trend in Southeast Asia, because let's start with Thailand, for example. They've been having a lot of turbulence, if I may use that term, in their country. Of course, they were supposed to have an election, but it didn't happen. There was a military coup, and which was supposed to be temporary, but it slowly engraved itself in the country, and it's kind of becoming permanent now with General Prayut Chan-o-cha comfortably sitting down as the head of Thailand right now, and he's trying his best to make the people of Thailand happy, but they don't really agree with what he's doing or his policies or his efforts to make them happy. Remember, there was the free World Cup screening, and he was giving out free stuff and all, but at the end of the day, they want their democracy back, and it's as clear as that, or at least for the rest of us.
But how strongly they are? Seems like people are pretty comfortable in having, the current military government in Thailand.
I don't think so, because there's been a lot of protests in the news, especially among the students. They've been reading the Hunger Games, they've been reading Animal Farm as a sign of protest, and even doing the Hunger Games three-finger sign. And
I'm saying that in order for Malaysians to have the habit of reading is to have a dictator to rule over Malaysia.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Just kidding about it.
But I really don't think that the people there are happy about it. But for now they probably don't have a choice, and they don't have much of a channel, because they can't even be together. There cannot be like a gathering of more than 5 people, or the police will intervene and do something.
Mm-hmm. Even in Malaysia, we have the Sedition Act. You can see that a lot of countries are getting much. Not all, but a lot of countries are getting much more dictatorial in its leadership, or more authoritarian. But of course, the light of the end light of the tunnel that you see, there will be election in 2015, especially in Myanmar. This is a real, I would say, what's that word? Is a game changer. The election will definitely be a game changer in how Myanmar will be in the next 5 years, because we all know Aung San Suu Kyi, the last time Aung San Suu Kyi was under house arrest was the last time that she actually contested in an election where she won the majority, but of course it wasn't being recognized by the military government, and for a decade the military government ruled over Myanmar, and it became a backward country. But now, especially you see Jokowi winning the election, and he came from a non-elitist background. It shows that maybe democracy will restore back in Southeast Asia starting from 2015.
Well, I hope the democracy really functions, and it actually serves the purpose of having one in one nation, because we've been reporting a lot of news about from Thailand or Myanmar, like Myanmar is going forward, but then Thailand is going backwards, and then all this system that is have been changing throughout the Southeast Asia. But after all, it's also how people are becoming vocal, or people have their own movement towards the government for them to realize what's going on. So democracy, the term, it could be just a term in one nation, but then depends on how we actually functions, and to be able to deliver the message to people, that's another story.
Talking about polls, actually Singapore might call for a snap polls this year as well. It's interesting because when it comes to Singapore, we rarely talk about Singapore. Number one. Number two is its election could be the most competitive in probably forever.
And if these elections are not held, 2015 itself is a significant year for Singapore because it's its 50th anniversary since the founding
So
of
Lee Hsien Loong,
Singapore.
back up yourself for Singaporeans.
But yeah, you're right. We rarely highlight politics in Singapore, mostly because Malaysians have this perception that they're better off and everything's fine. But in reality, there's a lot of turmoil happening in Singapore itself.
Like people queue up for Hello Kitty McDonald's.
But there are a lot of stories there are being told among the people there. As much as Singapore looks very organized and arranged in the nation itself, but there are lots of behind stories the government has been keeping secretive to themselves.
I mean, last year I was just kidding about the Hello Kitty, although it happened.
We got it.
The biggest problem that I think that was being really highlighted in Singapore was the Little India riot. I think we all still remember it, how it really affected the way Singapore is being viewed by the global society. We used to believe that Singapore is this perfect nation within Southeast Asia, but it seems like it's been neglecting a lot of the human rights issue, especially for the migrant workers.
They even had issues regarding censorship, regarding websites having sort of seditious article, pretty much parallel situations to what we're facing in Malaysia as well. And also another big issue that was happening was about the money, the CPF funds.
The CPF funds, but headed by this an ordinary guy, Roy Ng. He tried to highlight how the government is not being transparent on the their rakyats' money, obviously. but interestingly, you can see how Singaporeans are getting much more confident in voicing out their voices, even though their civil society is like almost next to nothing if you compare to Malaysia and Indonesia.
I think 2015 we'll look out for Thailand, we'll look out for Myanmar, look out for Singapore as well, and
I have to talk about Malaysia, unfortunately.
Yes, please.
I mean, I think we talked too much about the regional integration and about Malaysia being the chairman, and I think we also explained a lot about the international or regional trade agreement like TPPA, AEC, RCEP, and all that. But what we never talk about is how Malaysia will fare in the ASEAN and UN spotlight. And I'm talking about Malaysia being a holder of a non-permanent seat on the UN Security Council. That's an achievement for Malaysia, right?
Well,
Do you think so? But being sitting on the UN Security Council as a non-permanent a member is not an easy feat. It's not like, I'm just taking all the spotlight and I'm part of UN, so what? But in reality, what Malaysia need to prove in the year 2015 is it is for its human rights track record, which is not being faring well, especially in 2014.
Yeah, because like you mentioned, it is a good thing, but when this happens, Malaysia tends to be in the spotlight. People start noticing us, and then they're gonna look at our own domestic politics and really look into what's happening here, and then they are gonna start questioning us as well. Like, how can you be a part of this, but your own country, your own political situation is not even convincing enough?
But that's very interesting because it's very well known that Malaysia is sort of stuck between America and China, and then there will be a lot of question raising, regarding this.
I think a lot of
matter.
Southeast Asian countries are stuck between these two superpowers.
And then the recent event of our Prime Minister meeting Obama when all this natural disaster
Don't forget
happened.
playing golf with a pink shirt.
Yeah.
Hashtag
To be
fashion
more
police.
descriptive, yes. Yeah.
Disaster.
So those are the few of challenges that the Malaysia has to face, and then definitely we will get spotlight because we are the chairman of ASEAN.
Yeah. So my advice is, Prime Minister Najib, don't wear pink.
Oh, what?
It doesn't look good on you.
Oh.
But in reality, Malaysia definitely needs to back up ourselves, especially when we talk about how we can bring about change in Southeast Asia, and when it comes to the bigger picture here, when it comes to how geopolitics would affect Southeast Asia, you mentioned about superpowers like China and the US is a real threat to Southeast Asia, and also can be a real opportunity. But another real threat and opportunity is the oil prices. Did you notice there's a 30-cent drop in the gas price?
It was in the news, and a lot of people were excited about that.
But that also brings another worrisome because that will drop the ringgit currency, and it's been dropping quite drastically.
We all have been observing how our ringgit value has dropped significantly.
And also another thing is in terms of subsidies, not only Malaysia, even President Jokowi has resorted to cutting down on subsidies because he feels like that money could be used to improve other parts of the country, especially in terms of improving the infrastructure. And because you were looking at me so intently.
I was listening to you, Gowri. And I was impressed about Jokowi, because I look forward to his policy reforms.
And he's another guy that we should all be looking out for in 2015 because he's made a number of very bold decisions regarding his foreign policies, his domestic policies, and some parties are happy, some are not, but he's just going all out, like, this is what I'm gonna do and I'm just gonna do it anyway, and haters gonna hate.
Gowri, there's no Taylor Swift in Jokowi. Don't need to bring in. Anyway, I'm a big fan of Jokowi. I don't know about you, both of you. Like, I think
You really don't know. We are
You really don't know.
I mean, the thing about Jokowi that I'm really impressed is, the first tragedy in Southeast Asia, which is the QZ8501 AirAsia flight, he really handled it so well that I couldn't imagine how Najib will be, in the same kind of situation.
And then definitely Jokowi, though, he knows how to listen to people, and then he actually takes that into consideration to be able to carry out his plans.
And what I love about Jokowi, besides that, is he loves to do spot check, like your,
Like back in
principal,
school.
your principals or your
Prefects.
discipline teacher. They always do. And your prefects. And I like that. You need some tough guy, doing spot check on your ministers, what they are doing.
And definitely that can bring a lot more challenges because especially his opponents in the government, they could actually challenge him even more and stronger. But then with his firm decision and like we said, bold attitudes towards his people in Indonesia, definitely he will make somewhere to improve the nation.
And Grace seems to have very high hopes on
Of
Jokowi.
course. Of course.
And economically, actually, this is what Jokowi has promised to his people, which is to have a 7% growth by the end of 2015. That's actually a very, very huge promise. I'm not sure how he's going to achieve it, but he said that he welcomed all investors to come in to Indonesia to invest, except for critical industry like mining and forestry, because as we all know, these industry are often being exploited by international companies. Or it's a revenue making industry, and obviously it's great that Jokowi put a stop on that, or at least put a filter on that.
And he was also being scrutinized because his new policies are all very domestic, very people-based. So the criticism was that it's not regional, especially
On his
because-
foreign policy.
Yeah, because we are heading towards AEC and we are looking for an ASEAN integration, and it seems that he's not one of those who are really committed to making it happen because he wants to be more focused on his people and more domestic issues.
But I guess I can understand where he's coming from, because if we can't fix the problem internally in the nation, how can the nation can actually move forward? You see, I mean, I'm fully supporting
Yeah.
Joko Widodo because of his
Widodo.
firm actions towards the nation, and I think it's going quite positively so far.
Gowri, we shouldn't make fun of other people's name.
I'm not making fun of anybody's name.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize.
I like when you mention Joko Widodo.
That's my Korean accent, by the way. Yeah.
I mean, actually, I mean, Jokowi is definitely the star that we need to see within Southeast Asia. Of course, you know, Najib is still a star, unless he prove himself otherwise. But the elephant in the room when it comes to this year's ASEAN community is how well ASEAN can cope with China. And when I say China, I'm referring to the long impending issue, which is the South China Sea. I think this will be a major trend or major issue that will be the center of discussion in all the ASEAN summits.
And we also don't know how to predict how long it will last. The issue
or
itself.
how to respond, because like Grace was saying earlier, we are stuck between America and China, and we want to have a good relationship with China. Of course, it's a big, powerful nation, and we don't want to offend them in any way. And we also have pandas here, so that means we really have to look after the relationship that we have between the two countries. But at the same time, with Philippines and Vietnam getting to the dispute, we as part of ASEAN are actually obliged to take these two countries' side, because they are in the region together with us instead of taking China's side. But and that creates a different conflict as well. What kind of strategy are we gonna adopt to
But does
approach
it
this?
have to be a zero-sum game? It's either you're with us or not with us, because at the end of the day, in international politics, you can't help but to be friends with everyone. You cannot, especially with your neighbors, your closest neighbor. But doesn't mean that you are putting a cold face towards your distant neighbor. I think at the end of the day is to ensure to be sure what is actually ASEAN interest. Okay, because I don't think ASEAN have that kind of frank discussion about what actually is in it for us. Not for individual countries, but for us in ASEAN. It's like, I mean, I have to bring the relationship thing to describe like when you discuss as a couple, like you don't discuss like what is it in for our mother-in-law or father-in-law, but what is it in for the couple, the man and the wife. Work together and to know what is your interest first before you approach other people.
So China's the mother-in-law here.
Yeah, and US is the father-in-law. So, I mean, seen that way, that's
Well,
probably
that does
easier.
make sense,
Yeah,
because
it-
after all, to build up a relationship and then to develop from there, it's important to open up and then to find out what are the issues and what can we actually fix if there are things to fix, and also to be. I guess it's all about the transparency between these two partners, if you want to put it that way, and I think it's very important.
It's very important to have the frank discussion. What is it for? Is it in for us for South China Sea?
But you know, what if they take the pandas back? And then you will be sad, and a lot of other Malaysians will be sad as well.
I'll be sad as well. Yeah, I love pandas.
So it's all about coming up with a proper strategy on how to, like Arlene mentioned earlier, it's hard to be friends with everybody and not offend anyone. So the trick here is to come up with a strategy to try not to piss off anyone too much and still maintain the relationship that we already have, especially with Philippines and Vietnam, because they are actually in ASEAN itself.
And instead of having like individual interests within Southeast Asia, is to have a collective interest, and this is what is lacking in ASEAN. And I still remember having the discussion with the EU head of EU delegation to Malaysia, and what I was really impressed with European Union. Of course, they have their own baggages as well, but what I was really impressed is how strong their institutions are, how collective they are. Whenever they make decision, no matter how long winding or tiring it is, they ensure that there's a collective voice there. It's not just individual voice. And European Union, as far as I know, is as diverse as Southeast Asia, so it's not that they are any different from us.
So it is actually possible to come together as one, despite of how diverse you are, how different every country is, to come together and speak together as one voice.
Sure. I definitely, I'm overall, I'm quite optimistic about Southeast Asia, but at the same time, another word, if there's one Achilles heel that they need to address, is the political will of the governments in Southeast Asia. So what is your overall view on the trends?
My overall view.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh well, to be frank, I am not so optimistic about ASEAN when it comes to ASEAN matter, because I think there are still a lot of rooms that we have to grow, and then we just love to highlight the certain issues, but then overall, because there are 10 countries and each country have their own different colors and elements to bring, and then to make a single market, just like EU, and we need to have the attitude to learn from other developed countries, how they actually can move forward as one single market. So 2015 is definitely a significant year for Malaysia, but then before we hand over our chairmanship to other countries, I think we really need to make a change, or at least an improvement, not only in our nation, but to influence other Southeast Asia as well.
And while we are fostering all these relationships with other countries, is also important not to overlook or neglect what's happening in the country itself, because like Grace mentioned earlier, how can you if your country itself still has a lot of problems and you can't fix the internal problems, it's hard to reach out and go about it in a regional level. That will be a lot tougher and a lot more challenging for ASEAN 2015.
So that's all from us today at our Monday Morning Matters. Hear more from us about perspective about Southeast Asia on Southeast Asia. And of course, always connect with us via Facebook, Twitter. Now we have Instagram as well.
And also you can download our TuneIn app on your smartphone from your Play Store, and just look for Durian ASEAN and you will be tuned to us.
And also don't forget about our website. We have Durian ASEAN website, and then everything will be there. So come and find us
all the
at
information you
durianasean.com.
need.